Hello and welcome back to another The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live review, and today will be my review on episode 3, Bye. And this is the big episode where Michonne and Rick are finally together. Michonne's getting to see the CRM first-hand experience and all that, and the episode is really about Rick trying to get rid of Michonne because he can't leave. The episode starts with Jadis being like, okay, if you escape, I'm just going to go kill everyone at Alexandria. And we find out that Rick hasn't been told this before. Like, this has only been happened because J. Estrella goes, well, because you two together, anything can happen. So that was literally the first time we've heard of this. So the agreement was to not speak about Alexandria, and the threat is a brand new thing. So it's not like it's been years of Rick's been aware. This is a brand new thing. And I'm just going to say, the acting in the first scene, you have Jadis just absolutely stealing the show. And then you have Andrew Lincoln playing Rick, and you could see the panic. I absolutely love Andrew Lincoln's performance in this episode. He's definitely the standout actor. Like, his performance throughout this entire episode is absolutely amazing because he forces Rick to go through so much. You have Rick with the joy that he's seen Michonne again, but then you have Rick having to deal with all this worry and panic of Jadis being like, if you leave, I'm gonna kill everyone, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I just really like what they're doing with Rick in this episode, because you do so much of Rick. Like, you have Michonne just pulling Rick one way, you have Jadis pulling Rick the other way, and Rick's just kind of caught between two worlds. And I really enjoy that premise and what they're doing with Rick. And it's really cool to see the tension forming between these two characters. This is meant to be a love story after all. You need to have some drama, and you got this big reunion. But Michonne hasn't reunited with the man she thought she lost all those years ago. Rick is now a different man. So the premise of this episode is that Michonne's trying to get Rick to escape with him, but Rick's like, I can't go. I will get rid of you. And the whole premise is Rick's trying to get rid of Michonne. He makes her escape, and then she finds out, oh wait, Rick's not coming, so she goes back. And you then have characters being a bit sus of Michonne. She seemed a bit much like an A, and everyone's like, is she meant to be a B? But the episode is absolutely fantastic, I do have to say. It's paced amazing from start to finish. This episode, I would say it's paced even a bit better than the previous episode. The music is absolutely amazing. I absolutely love they keep using, I think it's called Long Journey, or Journey's End theme from the end of The Walking Dead with a slight variation. That is one of the best soundtracks I've heard in a really long time, the final season of The Walking Dead. And I'm really happy they are using some of it in this episode. And it's just Rick and Michonne's love story music now, which is absolutely amazing. Just absolutely love hearing it. The only weird kind of concern I have about this episode is Major General Bill. I just feel like there's a lack of him, and it's making me start to feel like he's not going to be the main villain. He's just going to be there, because he's barely in this. He barely has any connection to Rick. He's had 2 scenes with Rick where he's been like, okay, Rick, has Okafork done this? In episode 1 and episode 3, he's like, your name comes up a lot, Grimes. I'm a bit sus of you. And that's it. And I'm starting to think Jadis is going to be the main villain instead. She has a personal connection to Rick in this episode, makes it very clear there is something going on because she talks to Rick right in front of Michonne, and she's like, hey Rick, you should come and check out my new quarters. It's got a great view, while she kind of corrects something on his uniform. I don't think there is some sort of thing where Jadis and Rick have done something, but now Michonne's back. Rick is completely panicking because Jadis is like, oh, has Michonne seen me yet? And she kind of takes joy in Michonne being like, oh, look, it's Jadis. And Rick immediately panics and drags her away. So there is definitely some sort of love triangle. So it makes more sense if this is meant to be a love story, as everyone says it is, like Sock Impul, to have the main villain be personally connected in this love triangle or love story. So it'd be insane when Michonne finally finds that bit out. But other things about this episode, I really do like the flashback at the start of this episode. We see Rick's first reaction to the city, and that was quite nice. And I like how Michonne got that too, so we had some mirroring of Rick's first reaction, and we saw Michonne's first reaction. And then we see how are Michonne and Judith getting on these phones and everything like that. We see Michonne walk up and she sees a guy who's been carving people. And I really like how that's answered, where it's believe a little longer, he wrote it. And I do like how they mentioned Carl, where apparently Rick has been going for years to try and get Carl carved on a phone, but he just can't get it right. And I really like that, because we're getting mentions of Carl, because The Walking Dead has a bad habit of a character dies, they never get mentioned again. But I like how Carl keeps being brought up, because he's important to the Grimes family, he's important to the story of Rick and Michonne. So I really do like that nice little moment where Carl got a mention. It's a shame that RJ hasn't been mentioned yet, you know, Rick's son that he doesn't know about. It's just a bit shame, but it's quite a nice moment. This episode is filled with lots of nice, sweet little moments. And then it's filled with Rick calling out Jadis on having a shit haircut. My favourite scene in the episode, it really is. Just because everyone's thinking it. She has a terrible haircut. She's always had a terrible haircut. The only time she's had a good haircut is in the start of the episode with a little flashback. I don't know why they keep giving her bad haircuts, but it's just so funny that Rick's like, oh yeah, you're a hero with a shit haircut, then walks off. Rick is the boss with that. That's a great little line there. I do have to say that this episode really does feel like it's just setting a lot up. The first 2 episodes were very enclosed stories, just about where Rick and Michonne's been. This really feels like this is where the plot is actually starting to get going, because a lot does happen in this episode. Like, you have the big setup of what I think is going to be the end of episode 6, the summit with everyone coming together. So everything's building towards all of the CRM, all the top brass heading to one location. And now you have Thorne, who seems to know a lot of things. She's had this special meeting with Major General Bill, which Rick was on his way to go to at the end of this episode, where she's now completely different. She's seen some things. She now knows everything. And Thorne's like, we need to do this. We have to do this. I know all these things. And she keeps talking to Rick, being like, once you know what I know, your mind changes. And it's like mind blown. There's so much big setup, like mystery. What is going on with the CRM? What does Thorne know? And it's really, this episode is about just setting everything up. This is a big setup episode, and it starts very strong. Like, so much is going on. I really like how you're now getting this tension also. You have tension between Rick and Michonne, Rick and Jadis, and now Rick and Thorne. It seems Rick's world is falling apart. Everyone who is close to him, and then everyone who's kind of pushed their way into his life forcefully, is now kind of bearing down on Rick, being like, what the hell are you doing, Rick? And Rick is just being absolutely torn. I really do like how Thorne she seemed close to Rick in the first 2 episodes, but now she is full on, okay, I know this thing, which is this big mystery. I need to maybe get rid of Michonne because she's a liability to me. And Thorne seems to have changed suddenly after this briefing. So what is this briefing? I hope we find out. Maybe she found out what we already know. Maybe, because I've seen some videos already, some people saying, oh, it could be, maybe it's a cure or something like that. I think maybe Thorne just found out what happened to Omaha. And what Major General Bill's plan is to take out Portland. And maybe she's found out, like, what we found out World Beyond, is that the 3 communities, or 2 communities now, is actually draining the resources from Philadelphia, and if the other community still survives, Philadelphia will also fall. Maybe she found out how close the CRM and the city is to just complete collapse, and that's why she's like, oh no, we need to do this now. I also want to quickly say something about the ending. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like how cliffhangery it was. The first 2 had cliffhangers. This one's cliffhanger was just too much for me. I just didn't like it. It should have ended with Jim getting on the helicopter, not them jumping out the helicopter. It just seemed a bit dumb. But moving on to one sentence, that's one word overall review. And I have to say, this is an absolute banger. It's an absolute banger of an episode. And give it a 10 out of 10. This episode is just perfect from start to finish. I absolutely love Andrew Lincoln's performance. The story, the pacing is great. Everything about this episode is just so amazing, and it just builds on so much mystery. This episode just adds so much lore and mystery, and you're like, I need to watch the next episode to find out what does Jadis know about Rick? What is this story that you now have this and that, blah blah blah. There's so much going on, but this is it for me today. So goodbye, peace out. Tell me everything down below, what your thoughts about this episode. Did you love it? Did you hate it? And I'll see you next time. So goodbye, peace out. I'll talk to you in my next video.